Hey, welcome to Represent. I am Crunk Chocolate, part of Shades of Blue podcast content season, bringing you an episode every other day throughout the summer. Where other podcasts go on holiday or vacation, Shades of Blue cranks our feet up to 10. So here we are, Represent. It is where we can relax a little. Off season means no need for tribalism, temporary truces. So I decide to bring so many most dope people on so we can just talk about how they fell in love with football and the clubs they support. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment after the episode with your thoughts. For those of you who prefer the audio only experience, rate and review us on your podcasting app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and all those digital streaming platforms. I have a wonderful guest for you, Shady Gang. First time, and hopefully not the last time, this man is out here working, inspiration type things. Writer for the District Press covering DC sports. Check him out on one of his 3 podcasts, USA Soccercast, Duke Basketball Roundup, and World of Concacaf podcast. Stand up. Shady Gang, please give it up for Donovan. Yeah.
Appreciate that. I'm glad you invited me on. I know it's a little sensitive, but I'm glad you invited me on. And you had a big game today. Our teams battled a couple weeks ago, and I'm glad you extended the invite after that was done.
Yes, it is. And honestly, I understand all that stuff. If you were like, hey, maybe next week, I would have understood. I am understanding.
It's all good. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I always like to start this episode for Represent, at least getting to know you a little bit more on, I guess, the more shallow. We'll break the ice here, where we get to know a little bit more about you. So introduce you. This is a chance for you to plug your 3 shows, because to me, this says passion. It says time management. It says a lot of things in order to do, because you have to like these things enough to do podcasts to, and obviously your mind, because if you're making podcasts, you feel like your thoughts should be distributed. So I'm very excited to dig in with this conversation. So yeah, let's please let us know a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I think first off, a lot of people who know me know this, but I'm an attorney by trade. Let's say that I do legal work in my spare time, of which I have very little. I sleep on Sundays occasionally when there's no soccer on, but I've been involved in the soccer scene for a very long time, more than 15 years. On the supporter side, I co-founded the DC chapter of the American Outlaws. I served on the national board and staff for several years, and have been involved with supporters groups for DC United, Real Madrid, and Detroit City FC. Also, manager of StarsandStripesFC.com. As you mentioned, co-founded the District Press and write and contribute there, and also have bylines for SB Nation and a few other outlets. I am, as you eloquently mentioned, I appreciate the plugs of all 3 podcasts. I am the host of the USA Soccercast. That podcast covers the U.S. national teams, co-host of the World of Concacaf podcast, which covers the entire region of North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and a college basketball podcast, Duke Basketball Roundup, obviously covers Duke basketball and do a lot in that space as well. And when I'm not talking about sports, I'm watching them. I watch almost all the soccer, almost all the basketball, every other sport that can be on my TV as we speak. It's the start of the WNBA season, so go Mystics, bring back the shock. And for everyone out there, my club teams are Real Madrid, DC United, Detroit City, and the Washington Spirit.
All this says to me is just time efficiency, like just you just know when you got to do things and you just do them.
I have a to-do list that's usually 25 to 30 things long, and try to get as many things done as possible. And sometimes they just move to the next day. Just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I feel that so much, man. Well, the first real question of this is it's a fun little bit back and forth, overrated and underrated. So
Mhm.
let's start with your overrated. What is your overrated thing about football? It can be general about the sport, culture, fandom, a rule. Yeah, any of that stuff.
You ready for this? My
Yes.
overrated thing is promotion relegation. That's my overrated thing. Uh,
You're going. Oh, let's
going
go.
in. So here's the thing about PR, right? Like on its premise, it's a cool deal, right? And it can be something that's exciting for fans. But I always say this: everyone loves it and swears it's the greatest thing ever until it happens to their team. Once it happens to their team, it's the worst thing possible. It should not have ever happened. And even here in the United States, everyone talks about how we should bring that over, and that will increase exponentially the popularity of the game and the investment in the game and the resources. I would love to see promotion relegation way down the line in the United States, but one, we're not ready for that yet. But also, I think people are completely unrealistic about it, and they exaggerate constantly about how much it'll really change the game. We talk about this all the time. People are putting in, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into this sport. And the thing that you want to tell them is, hey, that's cool, but your team sucks. So you're going to go down a level and you're going to make thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars instead of millions of dollars. Anybody who's put money in right now, they haven't got money back out. So they're not going to sit there and willingly accept being sent down a level just because their team happened to be bad one year. And I think in the height of US soccer stories, we see a lot of that, right? We see a lot of, DC United, we were the worst team damn near in the history of Major League Soccer in 2013. But guess what? We have a U.S. Open Cup to show for that year, and a lot of teams didn't win anything, and they won a lot of games. So you get those kind of success stories in the NWSL. You had Gotham, barely squeak into the playoffs on the very last day of the season, and then they go on and win the thing. So you have these stories that you can't get in Europe. And I mean, I think the closest you have is with Leicester. When they were about to be relegated, they kind of stayed execution. Then the next year they won the Premier League and were in the Premier League for quite a while before they dropped. I guess they dropped last year, and now they're going back up. So
Yes.
again, that's the thing you can do. You kind of get that ping pong ball back and forth. But I just think the fact that we're not ready for that yet. We're not. That is not how our sports are built. And we have a much different, unique system that I think requires a little bit more care and attention to detail than just dropping promotion relegation like a grenade and hoping it, solves all the problems.
I mean, I understand that, but it does seem that what we have here in American with our soccer, it's kind of just you buy into the MLS and then they just like cookie cutter, fill in the blanks. Here's your club, have your stadium, make your stuff, whatever. But you're handicapped by their rules to even make yourself good enough. And they're really, if because if you do pro rel, then you have to unleash like those restrictions on the teams. And in theory, that's kind of what they're heading towards anyway. So why don't we just open the box all the way? That's basically what Messi was complaining about. Like, how long do you think Messi has to stay in the MLS for Pro Rel to come? Because I feel like he's going to be the catalyst. Him and Giroud, all these players that are coming in, because more teams are going to want to get that. But I don't really understand. And I guess this is a leap. So let me just in there. How do you? And let's be back up more. Do you think players like Messi could be the catalyst to bringing pro rel to American soccer leagues?
No, because it's not happening next week. It's not happening next year. It's not happening this decade. Like Messi could, he hasn't even started the conversation. As we know, that conversation has been going on for eons. It feels like on whether we do that. I don't think they're going to be the catalyst of this because I promise you this: those guys don't care about promotion relegation either. A lot of these players don't. Again, until it happens to them.
Hmm.
When you think about Burnley really enjoyed promotion last year. They're hating it right now because they're going back down to the championship, and all those players who were Premier League players this year are going to be championship players next year. And so that's the only thing that they really care about in a given sense, right? I think they care about some of the history and mystique of their club that they play for, and they fight for that badge. But I don't think that they're the ones saying like, yeah, we should absolutely have promotion relegation here because, as they know, they don't want to be part of the relegated. Nobody does, and I think that is always a constant thing in the back of their mind. And it's not going to bring them any extra money because Messi's making all of it here.
Sorry. Well, I understand the idea that bringing pro rel, it's going to take a while. It makes no sense. But what is the pro to keeping what we have here? Because, yeah, the only reason why because it matches NBA, NHL, MLB. It matches what they're doing, and that's what we know. But soccer is a world sport. So it kind of makes things feel a little weird at moments when we play it the American way. So I guess how do you make people who might question that relax? What do you say to them that kind of sell the idea of this style?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it in a kind of a weird way. I think at first, this system, everyone says how bad it is for soccer.
Yes.
The Bundesliga came over to look at the NFL, and they brought the NFL over and how to make a closed system. Liga MX, who MLS has always compared themselves to in competition, Leagues Cup, and all that, they shut down promotion relegation for 5 years because they wanted to have a closed system and try and make more money out of the situation. And they're doing that by coming to the United States and playing more games through the Leagues Cup and friendly and stuff like that. Having said that, I don't think that what we have right now is the end-all, be-all solution. I think we are in a constant state of revision and trying to tweak things. It's just like a F1 car, right? Like you don't present the car at the beginning of the season and go, that's our car for the season. They make tweaks, and they every race they kind of do this and do that. We see that with rules changes and roster reconstruction and designated players and U22 initiatives and stuff like that. They'll keep doing that until they find something that really works for them. I agree that they need to continue to do that. They need to kind of expand the rosters because as I speak DC United, we can barely field the team for game days, and because they don't have enough players that are not hurt. You expand the rosters, give them more money in the pot to go out and be ambitious and get the Girouds and get the Lionel Messis and get those guys from South America who are 22, but instead of going to Europe, they feel that coming to the United States is the best path to get to Europe instead of going straight there, which has become in a way true. Like there's still things that you can do to kind of make it where this system is still ours, but doesn't implement it. I think the last thing, because I don't want to be long in every answer, I think the last thing is stability. We are not stable as a pyramid. Like think about all the teams that come in every year or fold or go in hiatus or switch, divisions and switch leagues. We've had teams go from, NPSL to NISA to USL League One to USL Championship, back down to League One, and then they dissolve because an MLS team comes in. Like we don't have any right to say that we're in a position that we can have a pyramid because there is no pyramid right now. We need to state the pyramid is heavy at the top and not at the bottom. Yeah. And we need to figure out how to make it stable across all of these divisions and on the women's side too, and make it where all of these communities and cities that don't have teams, get them teams first and get everything stable, figure out how you do this. I think that's a longer process because all these leagues are not looking out for the other leagues. And until that happens, not going to get promotion relegation at all, at least not between leagues.
Yes, true. All right. Well, what is your underrated about football?
My underrated is an easy one. It's CONCACAF Nations League. It is the greatest tournament short of the World Cup on this planet. I love it. The vibes are immaculate. People kind of dismiss it because it's CONCACAF. And I think if they actually look at the games and watch them, there's a lot of great soccer in this region. There's a lot of great soccer players in this region. And I'm not talking about the United States and the Mexicos and even the Canadas. I'm talking about the Anguillas. I'm talking about the Dominican Republics. I'm talking about, guys from Curacao, El Salvador, Nicaragua. There's guys and women in this region that are absolutely destroying it. And I think that when I first heard about that tournament, I latched on immediately. Why? I love going to islands, and this was an easy opportunity to go to islands. But within that, I say that because the island football that we see is actually pretty good. It's not trash, right? And people only see these teams play when they play the United States or they play Mexico, and some of them get washed, right? Like they get just destroyed. They go, "Oh, this team's terrible." They're not. It's just that they ran up against a really good team, and I think people underestimate how good the United States and Mexico is, and even sometimes Canada, not all the time, but sometimes when you compare them to the rest of the world and how everyone thinks that the United States is going to lose every game, and then when they don't lose every game, they say, "Oh, we didn't win by enough." Right? It's that sort of everybody everybody ain't happy unless they ain't happy. I think that's CONCACAF in general, the people's views on CONCACAF. But I think CONCACAF Nations League having that, you have the promotion relegation angle, right? You have teams get promoted and relegated. And I think there's a lot of drama in some of those matches and a lot of wild moments. So I really love that.
I like that. I'm just, for a few years, I was just kind of in my Man City bubble for the longest, honestly. I naturally watched World Cups, and but it's really just me in my Premier League bubble. And once I started the show, naturally, I had to focus a little bit more on the show. So lots of Man City. But with this year going into our third year, we are expanding the network. We're bringing in shows from Bundesliga and other Premier League teams, and we're going to cover the MLS. And I myself am just opening up to the world of football. Last year, I kicked it with Shea Butter FC during the Women's World Cup and did a lot of their watch-alongs. And that it's just been really fun immersing myself in. I'm now starting to get to the point where I'm just putting random games on. I'm watching like K League and Superliga, and it's just like, all right, I don't know the players, but yeah, let's watch, let's vibe, and it is what it is. And same thing with the island. We're conditioned, especially me in the Premier League, the most esteemed league in the world, even though we don't have the most teams in the Champions League next year. But we're supposed to be conditioned that the players that play there are the best. So if none of those places have any of those players, it's not good. Like even the MLS, it's the retirement league, and there are great players there. And like Tati Castellanos, shout out to NYCFC, Thiago Almeida over at Atlanta. Like, I mean, there's a huge list of players, but those are just a few the ones that come to mind first. Yeah, there's just talent everywhere, and we're now getting to the point where now that I guess great players where we know their names are starting to play with MLS players, and we're now starting to see that, oh, these guys are playing well against these players who our brains think are great. Maybe they are good football players. And it's a roundabout way, but I guess, hey, we're here.
I will say, careful now. Watching all the soccer like I do, that's how you end up with a $500 a month like cable bill. And then if your team gets relegated, you have to add more channels because they're not on every channel. They have like the package that has like 18 different channels. So you have to add all those, and then as you both see, another thing against promotion relegation, it will hit you, it will tax you in your cable bill.
I haven't gotten that. My whole thing is I'm not really picking teams. Like I just picked up Angel City this year, and it's not looking great for him. But I'm here. I as a City fan, with all the success, I need to struggle. Yeah, right.
Look, Real Madrid, and then I got DC United. We gotta have some. We gotta stay humble now. We gotta keep the struggle in our lives so we know how to encounter it whenever we happen to lose a game.
Yeah, it has humbled me. I'm sitting there with my Angel City scarf on and just sad. Just like, but it bees like that sometimes. That's what I love about football. Well, next question is, what made you fall in love with football?
I played soccer as a kid. I started when I was like 5. Really enjoyed it. I couldn't play football but I think that was a blessing in disguise, right? I started playing soccer, really enjoyed it. I was good at it. That helps. It's one thing if you're, playing a game and if you're terrible at it, then you don't like it anymore and you cast it aside. But back then there wasn't a ton of soccer that you could watch. Growing up, I mean, we got the occasional Champions League game, maybe an EPL game or two.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of the big teams, right? And the big teams back then, right? Everyone, you just talked about like Leeds, right? Leeds was a big team back then, and then there's a nice little almost 20-year gap where they weren't. So when I have a soft spot for Leeds because I used to watch them growing up. People go, wait, when? Like back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were one of the top teams in England. So they were on TV every week. The Liverpools, like not even Chelsea, right? Like Chelsea, in Man City, we think of as huge clubs, but they weren't on TV back then a lot.
Oh, I know.
And so it was a lot of those big teams. As I grew older and the game ended up on TV more, you get a little bit more access. It allowed me to kind of watch more and get more into the game. I mean, it was the 94 World Cup really, kind of expanded most people's horizons. 99 at that point was another renaissance for soccer in this country, and it allowed people to say, hey, put this on TV and we will watch it. And so there was more of it. And so I stopped playing competitively in high school, but by then I was hooked on watching the game. And I'll tell you, the other thing that I collect is hats and jerseys. And the jersey culture, I've been a part of that in soccer since I was a youth. So that definitely helps. And as that has expanded, again, you learn about new teams through style and culture, and that has really made this sport one of the best to watch.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about football is the fashion part of it and the culture part of it. And when making Shades of Blue, there isn't another Black City podcast, so I wanted to make sure that when we talk about what we talk about and what we do, we try to make it fashion friendly. And for our first season, our whole thing was everybody take photos of your football fit, because especially in a lot of the Man City, of most of the people who are actually like about that life, they're not just like the trolls for the clicks. They're really like humble about themselves. A lot of people kind of hide being like supporting the city, and we were really big about like really pushing the culture of celebrating especially city women, because
Yeah.
they're badass and they deserve all the love. And we have done that, I feel like, well, especially with the city women, and that it's just something about to be proud of. And also it's just nice to look fly, and kits go with so many things. You can depending on the kit, it can be like actually dressed up, or you can go to a club with it. I just love what you can do with football fashion, and nowadays they're actually making like nice jackets and dress clothes and sweats, and they're really pushing the envelope with football clothing wear fashion.
And it's prevalent out there. Like my dad used to, like, he was a manager for General Motors. He used to wear soccer jerseys to work. So it's become more acceptable to see them out. Like if I wore a jersey back in like college, people are like, what is that team? And where did you get that jersey? How did you come about it? Were you in the country like when you bought it? Like how? And now if you go a day without seeing someone in the soccer jersey, you're kind of like, what happened? Like what's going on? Because they're just everywhere now, and it's become a more acceptable part of just fashion and just life here in the United States, which I think is great.
Yes. Do you have an origin story to how you chose the club you support? I mean, you have so many, so I guess you don't have to go through all of them. But
I'll start with the first one. Yeah, it's. I mean, Real Madrid was the first team I started watching, or at least following. And back then, I was learning Spanish as a kid, and back then, of course, everybody was zeroing in on an English team because here in America, we always are comparing ourselves to England in some sorts, and also it's easy to convert, like listen to what they're doing because all the games are in English. And I was like, all right, I want to pick a Spanish club because I'm learning Spanish, and this will help me learn some Spanish. So I was deciding between the big clubs, Real Madrid and Barcelona. And when I was 8 years old, this rookie defender came out of the woodwork, and I was a forward, so I also was like, okay, how do I play better defense? Or my coaches were trying to make me midfield, and I was like, I don't want to do that because I want to play defense. I just want to shoot and score. That's what happens when you're 8, right? But learning how to play defense, I learned through Fernando Hierro, and watching him play. He's a guy who was just just a badass on defense, but also move forward and also picked and chose his times to kind of go up and score. And it's not like he scored 80 goals a year, but like he had moments where he would come up and kind of like, Sergio Ramos of today or something like that, like guys who come up forward and really can be effective on the offensive end. So I watched him for years, and, he eventually became captain. But in the middle of that, Raul hit the scene. And when Raul hit the scene, he was just, I felt like he was amazing. And just I loved watching him play. So a forward latching on the defender, that's what kind of brought me in. And then Raul coming in, Iker Casillas, those are kind of guys that got me hooked with the team. So that was what drove me. And even into my teens, I was like, all right, Real or Barca. And then at a certain point I woke up, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be a Barca fan. I'm just gonna ride with the Blancos.
So how are you enjoying the transition from Los Blancos to Los Negros in Blanco?
Oh, it's great. It's great. I got Marcelo on my back, and it's been a steady trickle, right? Like we had a couple, we kind of disappeared for a while, and then like slowly but surely, it was all like, let's get this guy, let's get that guy, and then all of a sudden you looked at, I think it was a couple years ago when we won Champions League, and they had the picture with Carlo and everybody, and I was like, oh, we back. And now like all the guys we
now it's crazy.
Yeah, now we back. So and then if we get Kylian, then this scary hours. So so yeah, it's real fun to watch. And again, like we didn't have that as a kid. We didn't have guys that you could watch on the field and kind of look up to. I mean, you had to look towards the African teams in the World Cup, but very rarely did you see those guys on TV. To the point where it was someone that you can follow and track. But now with access being increased, you can watch these guys every single week play several times a week and all the various corners of the world. So I think that really helps. But yeah, the visibility of the biggest club in the world being just fully black is amazing.
Yeah. And when I first became a City fan, that was actually what drew me to them. Was they had 4, 5 black players on the squad, and I was like, this is supposed to be English. And I already liked them because they were the other team in Manchester, and I didn't really know them. And I'm in Iowa, where I always got that chippy underdog. And so I just really connected to that. I love sky blue. I just look fantastic in it. It's just so it was just like a beautiful thing. And I was just like, oh man, this would be really cool if they could ever one day like take over. 2013, that was when I first was able to figure out, because I was back then with Fox Sports Plus, Fox Soccer Plus, NBC Sports Gold, all of those chaotic, awful things. And I was registered to all those. I had a satellite. I was going to Dish. I was hopping over to each thing that you needed, because I grew up playing rugby. And so you always needed weird channels for that. And those games are at like 3 a.m. in the morning. The transition to
watch Aussie rules. So it's the same thing. Like it was like either staying up 4 a.m. watching A-League Aussie rules or even A-League soccer. And then, you'd have like, the games where you're looking for those illegal streams, those torrents, and hoping that it didn't burn your computer to the ground by clicking on the link. But yeah, it was definitely trial and error to get what you needed.
Who is the all-time? Well, you might have said it in the previous question, but who is your all-time favorite player from the club you support and why?
Yeah, Hierro's up there, obviously, because he's the first guy I kind of latched into. But my favorite player is Raul, and he's one of the greatest forwards of all time. Obviously, that's the position that I played. Amazing on the ball in space and traffic. Incredible leader. Watching him on the field is, what I like to emulate growing up. But I think the biggest part about him is that on a team in an era where the Galacticos were like the Monstars of soccer, like every, historically good player was on the team at the same time. Every single star, every single star was in the sky. He was still just as bright, if not the brightest star in the sky. And on the field, it did not matter what happened. They all looked to him to lead the team. They all looked to him to provide that big moment. They all could do it, right? Like the Ronaldos and, Roberto Carlos and Beckham, like they all could provide their own moments, but in the clutch, they looked towards him to be that guy to carry the team to victory. And I think that speaks a lot about him as a player. When he retired, he was had the most goals in Champions League history. So again, big moments. He delivered, and so that's my favorite player. I loved watching him play, and glad I got to see him play once live. So that was
Nice.
That's going to be pretty cool.
Yes, nice. Who is a current player that you want to watch anytime they're playing, any player, any league in the world?
This is a good question because I don't know that there's a player out there that's not on one of my teams that I have to be like, okay, this team's playing, this guy's playing, stop everything, must watch. Okay. Because I watch a lot of soccer. So a lot of times there's a lot of soccer's on TV. So, but there are players that I enjoy watching, again, if the game is on my TV, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's playing. Cool. Of course, Erling Haaland, right? Like he is a cyborg. I don't know what you guys do every week where he keeps scoring goals. He scored another one today, like just a couple a day. Like he just does that, right? It's to the point where he scores 3 or 4 goals. You're like, what's wrong? Was he sick? Like, did he have a limp? Right? So him, you have Mbappe, obviously, and again, hopefully soon I can say that he's on my team and I can watch him every week. Son is one of those ones that I was like, every time I watch Spurs, a lot of Spurs end up on my TV for no reason other than like Son's playing, and I just love the way he plays. I just think he's just very cool and calm, but has a kind of swagger to him that is unlike a lot of players, especially playing for Spurs. Like you kind of have to do something. They're not winning anything, so he's just kind of cool and calm under pressure. All the American players, obviously, that are playing over in Europe, I like to catch them to see how they're doing. And then 2 final ones, they both currently play for the same team, but of course we're going after one of them, Alphonso Davies and Thomas Mueller. I think Alphonso Davies, from the CONCACAF perspective, he's probably the best player in CONCACAF. Like he's that good. And Thomas Mueller, just like, again, not flashy, not a guy who you're like, man, just like eyes draw to him, but he ends up on the score sheet almost every week. And you just kind of look back, you kind of go like, how does he have so many goals? By not really commanding the ball or anything like that. He's just in the right place at the right time. So if you're looking to like learn the game and how to play it, he's a guy that you should watch, especially if you're a young one out there listening. He's a guy that you can watch just for like where to be in the field to affect change without doing a lot, and being able to take over a game in just a few steps. Like he's really, really good in that regard.
Well, that's fantastic answer. They've all been fantastic answers. Keep up the good work. Next question. Do you have a match day routine or a football superstition you want to share with us?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a superstition. I'm not a guy, everyone's like, do you get nervous before games or anything? No. 1, I'm not playing. 2, I feel like if I'm nervous, it means that I'm not ready, and I'm always ready for a game. So
let's go.
Stay ready, so you ain't got to get ready, and you always be ready. That's my code. So when someone's like, "Oh, the Champions League final coming up, are you nervous?" I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I wake up the day and I'm not like nervous or anything like that. I'm just like, fast forward till 3 p.m. so that we can get this game going because I'm ready. I wear a headband like when I was doing stuff like capoing and stuff. I would wear a headband because it's hot everywhere in this country. and I sweat when I work hard. So that was always my claim to fame. But my main match day routine is to coordinate the outfit, and whatever that's going to be, I lay out sometimes. If I'm not necessarily on the road because I have to kind of pack, but if it's somewhere at home, I'm just gonna go to the DC night game or Washington Spirit game. I lay out a few jerseys and a few caps to match, and maybe even grab the shoes, and then I just kind of let them sit there. And I don't pick one yet. In that the morning of the game, I'll wake up, throw them on the bed, and just kind of let them sit there. And then maybe like an hour or so before I have to leave, before I have to put the jersey on, I just kind of, based on feel, put everything together. And I go, yep, that's the jersey, that's the hat, those are the shoes. Grab the keys and let's go. And so that's kind of the thing, because I look good, feel good, cheer good. Hopefully your team plays good. But it's yeah, that's kind of the only routine I would say is I don't necessarily just go with the first, unless there's like a special occasion, right? Like if, for example, like, it's Raul Day at the club. Cool. I'll grab the Raul jersey, throw that on, easy. But if this is like, hey, we're wearing white, I got 90, have 90 Real Madrid white jerseys in there. I just grab a few that I think, okay, which, players, whatever, which style. And then I just, kind of one hour before the game, I'm like, yep, that's the one. Pick it up, throw it on, off we go.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to get you out on this last question. So it is, everybody knows this general take. It's the elevator pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a club, and you have 30 seconds to push it and go.
I like winning. Yes, I do. I like winning. How about you? You should like winning. So come rock with the Galacticos, the Monstars, the greatest team on the planet. We got 14 Champions League titles. Lord willing, on June 1st, we'll have a number 15. We got 36 La Liga championships, more titles than some teams have wins. We have some of the best players to ever play this game, one of the greatest coaches ever, the greatest soccer stadium in the world. We play with a style and swagger that most teams can only emulate on Ultimate Team. And within the club, we have our local opinions, a soccer family that you can absolutely want to be a part of. A la Madrid nada más. Considere hacerse una madridista.
Ay, papi.
Stumbled on Spanish. I gotta get my swagger back in that regard. So
no worries. That was fantastic. Oh man. Shady Gang, once again, thank our guests for coming on.
Thank you so much. I will say I am not a Manchester City fan at all, but I am listening to you guys on a regular basis, because that's the kind of energy that I like to see, and you guys make it where even if you don't necessarily know about the team or even care about the team or like the team, whatever, you have that gravitas that draws people in. So continue to keep doing what you're doing.
Dude, appreciate that. Yes, we love what we're doing, and respect to you and everything that you're doing. Really respect it. And with the CONCACAF, I'm going to be paying attention to that even more. Naturally, I'm a part of it. And also, ooh. Wow. So embarrassing.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I didn't know if you, because I couldn't hear anything, but you froze. So
yes, I did freeze. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm very much looking forward to paying attention and keep on paying attention to everything you're doing. And I need to tap into USA Soccer Podcast, because when it comes to U.S. women, I'm all in. But there's just there's a gap when it comes to the men. I can't seem to connect with them, and it's not the player's job. It's just everything surrounding the men's team that just keeps me from being go USA when they play. And if I'm free, I'll watch their games. And maybe, but the women, I'm tapped in all the way. I'll get red, white, and blue when it comes to our women, all day. But maybe you can
And
help
they're fun
me
to
find that
watch.
connection. Yeah.
You're not wrong in that regard. I think obviously big summer, Copa America is coming up, big friendlies
Yes.
coming up. One right here in DC that I'm helping out with Colombia.
Nice.
So you have those big moments, and I think just like a World Cup, I remember a lot of people like, oh, the first time I watched the team was during the World Cup. Copa America is a similarly sizable tournament, one of the biggest in the world. So that's definitely a time that you can tap in, let loose, and maybe from there you get a few of these guys that you want to follow on a regular basis, and maybe City signs some of them in the off season because y'all seem to sign everybody that we don't sign.
Oh, I love it. Oh, well, Shady Gang, you will be hearing my voice soon with a new most dope personality. You know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.